about comics. Let's talk about comics. Let's talk about comics. Let's talk about comics. Around Bay friends, it is your boy Charles here with another comic book review. Today I want to talk about Absolute Superman number 3. The Absolute series, it is a retelling of popular DC characters, their origin stories, and who they are. We have Absolute Wonder Woman, which I'm reading, Absolute Batman, which I read number 1, but I decided not to continue, but I've been hearing great things about Absolute Batman, and this is Absolute Superman. Now, I did a review on number 1 and 2. Number 1 was getting to know this new Clark, his motivations, understanding where he's coming from, and really setting him as a guy that fights for the underdog and a freedom fighter per se. And number 2, it was all about action. It was Clark versus Lazarus Corp and all of their fury and bullets and violence could not match up to him, and it was the introduction to the relationship of Clark and Lois, who in this world is an officer of Lazarus Corp. And so we get to see that develop in number 2. It was all action and the introduction of that relationship. This one, number 3, it takes place virtually all on Krypton 6 years earlier. If you've been following along, you know that in Krypton, it's a very segregated society. You have the science class who they don't rock the boat. It's almost like a religious zealotry, commitment to science and what is established and what is known, and you're not to deviate from that. And we found out in number 1 that even the symbol on the chest that was a sign of hope in the canon Superman story is actually a sign of the lower class on Krypton. And his parents, despite being brilliant, they were outcast from the science class, from the science elite, because they dare to speak against known science. And so you get to see that is where his activism and wanting to fight for the underdog comes from. While his classmates and all of those people, they have all of this opportunity, he is very much an outcast because of his parents, because of his situation living out in the sticks. Despite all of their brilliance, they are outcasts. But this takes place completely on Krypton. We find out that Krypton is dying. His parents know this, and we come to find out later that the science class knows this, but they're suppressing that information. Why are they suppressing that information? We'll get to that. But we find out that even though that they're trying to suppress this information, Clark's parents, they're trying to make an arc per se to save them and their loved ones, and they want to get this information to the ruling class because they want to save all of Krypton from what is coming. But they're being rejected and ignored. And you think that it's pure zealotry. But as the signs become more and more clear, you see dying animals, dying crops, certain things in nature not working how they're supposed to, and it's becoming harder and harder to ignore the reality of what's happening on Krypton. And so, in a last-ditch effort, we see Clark's father, fighting his way to, the heart of power of Krypton, trying to tell these people what's going on. And while he is doing that, his son is on a field trip in the same place. And he sees his father being taken away. And as he's leaving, he sees spaceships heading out. And notices that this science, this scientific center, if you will, is empty. And there's nobody there. And he realizes that they're being abandoned. And that's when you find out that the ruling class know exactly what's going on, and they're keeping it a secret from the populace. And so that leaves Superman and his family, who, there's a great sequence of his mother and him breaking up their father and they explain everything what's going on to Clark. And we leave off with the arc here and this program or sentience known as Soul. It's SOL, and it runs this spaceship. And their plan is to put the family and as many people as they can on this thing and head out. And we don't know what happens from there. We know that in this world we only see Superman. So it implies that they all didn't make it. But they leave that as a little cliffhanger here. And again, I think it's a great way to downshift from the action of number 2, and it's a fresh story in this canon universe that really keeps it interesting, and it makes me excited to see what's going to happen. They're not rushing the story; they are playing the story beats appropriately, and not just trying to get boom, 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 put out book after book after book, and rushing the story points. You would think after a big action piece like issue number 2, they would keep the foot on the gas, but no, they do something brilliant here. Is they take you back and they spend the whole issue on Krypton. And so I really enjoyed that. And if you're not a fan of the traditional Superman stories, I would highly suggest this book. It's a big book, but it's a fast read because the writing is so engaging. The art is beautiful, and brutal, and I really dig it. So that's my review of Absolute Superman number 3. Check it out at the local comic book store. And if you don't have a local comic book store, visit my friends over at coffeeandthecomic.com. You get free coffee with every purchase, and they ship nationwide. So I'll see you next time. Until then, keep reading them books. I'm out.